Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's almost the end of March as I'm filming this, which means another monthly check-in video. Before we start, I just want to apologize in advance if my energy seems quite low for this video because it is pretty low. In fact, I tried to film this video a couple days ago and I couldn't even get past the intro because I felt like all the words were stuck in my throat. I just felt very demoralized, so I stopped filming, but I still thankfully have a couple days left till the end of the month, and so hopefully I can film this and get it up by early April. But I don't know, things are just a little bit difficult. Not to be dramatic. In fact, I'm probably making it sound a lot more dramatic than it is. It's just I feel like my energy is a bit low and it's affecting how I feel about completing my tasks every day. It's a vicious cycle where I feel like I'm low on energy, I don't do as many things that I want to do, and then I feel bad about myself, which contributes to my low energy. It's just a whole thing and nothing super serious. It's all in my head, as it usually is. It might also mean that this video is a bit more scattered and rambly, but I hope to keep it brief. But anyway, today's video is another check-in. I can make a playlist of all the check-in videos I've done so far, of which there are only 2 because I did one for January and February and now it's only March. But I'll make a playlist if you're interested in following this check-in series. Basically, in these check-in videos, I give an update on what has happened throughout the month, what my progress on my goals are. I also talk a bit about my budget, and then I share any changes to my budget for the new month, as well as my favorites. So if this is your first time tuning into a check-in video, that's what you can expect. But otherwise, it's just a casual video for myself mostly, to stay accountable to my goals and almost like force myself to reflect on how the month has gone. So that's what I hope to do today, even though it might be a bit more of a less than optimistic update. It's getting really warm, the sun is coming back out. It was really cloudy just now when I started, but I guess it'll just get progressively warmer as I film. But anyway, I guess we can start with how the month has gone. Overall, I think March was yet another challenging month for a few reasons. In my February check-in, I mentioned how February was also quite a stressful month, and I think that was because I was slowly starting to get a bit burnt out from the intense pace that I was putting myself through for the first 2 months. So the stress was coming from that, but I did say that it was getting a bit better towards the end of the month. And it kind of followed through in the first week of March, but at the same time I was also trying to rush a lot of work-related things and life admin-related things because in the second week of March I was going overseas for a trip. So it was quite stressful leading up to the trip. And then the trip itself happened, and that's a whole other video which I don't think I will make, only because I don't really have footage of the trip, and so it'll just be me rambling about my thoughts. And also I think because of the city that I went to Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong is just not a city that is suited to my personality, and so by the end of the trip I felt even more tired than before I went. I think the nature of the city and the nature of our itinerary also is just one of those kinds of holidays. Like some holidays you don't really do much and then that is a very peaceful, relaxing trip. Like say you go to a resort or something and you just sit by the pool or the beach. This kind of trip is like you have things to do every single day. So that happened in the second week of March, and so when I came back from my trip I found that I was still very tired, and on top of that all my routines were out of whack. So when I was in Hong Kong, I didn't really have a set waking up time. I just sort of woke up whenever I wanted to, and because I was so tired, I would often sleep in. So oftentimes I'll wake up between 9 AM to 10 AM, and then I'll sleep like midnight to 1 AM. And so trying to get back into my routine of waking up at 6, 7 AM was very difficult, and I struggled with it for like 2 weeks after the trip. So the leftover, I guess, exhaustion from going overseas carried over throughout the rest of the month, and I was basically just trying to get back on track and then not being very successful with that. So emotionally also I had to accept that this is taking a longer time than I would like having to get back into my routine. It basically took the rest of the month, and I don't know, in my head it feels like an awfully long time, But I'm trying to tell myself, like, in the grand scheme of things, what is 2 weeks in my entire life? For the past couple weeks, I've been thinking a lot about how I want to spend my time. As I've been trying to get back into my routines, that's what I've been thinking about a lot. And I started reading this book called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Bergman. My friend recommended this book to me, and the thing is, I've heard about this book for a very long time and it's always been on my to-read list, but I never got around to it until recently when I came back from my trip. I borrowed a copy from the library. I only just started reading it, so it's not gonna be in my favorites yet, but maybe next month, because I'm quite enjoying it, but it's also making me think a lot about my life, and that's when you know it's a good book. But it's giving me the same feelings as when I was reading Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. I think it's both like hard truths that make you really look at your life and reflect on what you're spending your time on, that kind of feeling. But this one so far, at least where I stopped, which is only on the second chapter, one of my biggest takeaways so far is that I'll never have all the time in the world to do everything that I want to do. Like, I'm gonna have to give something up and be okay with that, because life is very short. And he says it in a very empathetic kind of way, but at the heart of it, it is quite a tough message to swallow, a tough pill to swallow, and he acknowledges that as well. But that's where I am in the book, and so that's what I've been thinking about. And so that's just a message that I've been trying to internalize and accept. And in relation to also some decisions that I've made this month, so one of them being that I've decided to stop Korean school, and it was a really big decision because I've been studying Korean in a Korean language school for 2.5 years, since July 2022, so when it was still like slightly post-COVID period. After reading that book and thinking again about the commitments that I have in my life, I had to make the very hard decision to quit Korean school, which is quite disappointing to myself. It's disappointing and also a relief because I've been thinking about it for months now, and I finally decided to stop going to Korean school after the end of this term. But the main push factor for wanting to stop Korean school, at least for now, is mostly because of the time that it takes up in my week. I think when I started Korean school, I was still mostly working from home, and so going out for a class was almost the only time that I would be able to go out for something other than just meeting my friends, because I wasn't going out to work. And so it was a way for me to be around people back when I was mostly just by myself because I was working remotely. So I've been studying Korean in a school every single week, and it's a 1.5-hour class. But more than that, it's also the commute that it takes. It takes up basically my entire evening because I gotta commute to the class, and then by the time class ends, it's like 10 p.m. And so when I get home, it's really late. But after things started going back to normal with like going back to work, I think I feel that time crunch a lot more. And as I progress up to the higher levels, it does get more and more difficult. So I can't just rely on studying for 1.5 hours every week in class. I also have to do my homework and revise outside of class. So that takes up more time than I am willing to put in at this stage of my life. And it was a really difficult decision, and I still can't shake the disappointed feeling I have in myself that I've decided to quit at all. But on the other hand, I also feel a lot of relief because it's a break that I haven't had for 2.5 years. And so I want to lean more into that feeling, and I'm sure I will come to appreciate it more from next month onwards when I no longer have classes to attend. But I do have to put in the effort to study on my own, which is difficult. I think that was also one reason why I didn't want to quit class, because I wasn't sure if I would have the motivation to self-study on my own. And it could very well be that I never pick up a Korean textbook ever again for the rest of my life, but I don't know, maybe I'm projecting too far into the future. I shall just be okay with my decision for now, and then we'll see how it goes. But yeah, as you can tell, this is generally the vibe for the whole month of March. Things were topsy-turvy. I went to yoga once this month before my Hong Kong trip, and then when I came back, I just truly did not have the mental space to go to any classes. So I think this is my worst performing month so far in terms of being active and staying on top of my routines. Waking up early and sleeping early, also a struggle until maybe the last couple days. The only thing that is kind of going well, I guess, is making videos on YouTube, in the sense that I'm still publishing kind of regularly. I did take 1 week off, and that was scary at first, but then I realized not as serious as I thought it would be. And it was really helpful because that gave me a bit more space to edit my other videos. Honestly, I wish I had better news. I wish I could say like, oh, I'm on track, everything is going great. But it's not the case. It's only March, but I feel like I'm falling behind, and it's very hard to admit that. But I guess also it's very realistic. I don't know, I think I know that I'm pretty hard on myself most of the time, but sometimes I wonder, like, they're not very difficult goals. What is it that I'm really asking myself to do? I'm asking myself to wake up early, I'm asking myself to have a fitness routine. A lot of people have that with ease, at least from my perspective. So why is it so difficult for somebody like me to do it? That's like the kind of thing that I will say to myself whenever I fall behind, and then I become very hard on myself because of it. But I think if I take the time to really reflect on what has happened in the month, I can see like, oh, it's because I went on this trip, I've just been really tired. And the idea that I should always be on track and always have my life in order and never slip up is quite toxic, I think. And I can hear that side of the argument also. In fact, if a friend came to me with the problems that I am now facing, that's what I would tell them. I would tell them, you're being too hard on yourself. I think it's time for me to listen to my own advice and just take things a bit slower. Maybe finish the book that I'm currently reading, and maybe it'll give me some answers. I think I'll stop rambling on about the state of my personal goals and ambitions right now, because there are other things that I want to talk about in this video as well. So let me just summarize all that rambling. Basically, things are a bit rough. I'm trying my best to get back on track, and I will not be too hard on myself for slipping up, but I won't give up entirely. So that is how it is. As for my money goals, which is to improve my relationship with consumerism, that one, I have a very simple goal for next month, and that is, I say simple, but it's basically to do a no buy for the whole month of April. I think because I went on my trip in March and spent quite a bit of money, I want to balance out the scales a bit and not rely so much on retail therapy to cope with my stress, and also to just save a bit of money. My plan is to not spend anything on my sinking fund except for existing subscriptions and anything related to do with like health and anything that is urgent that I will need to immediately repurchase, like a replacement or something. But I don't foresee myself needing any replacements because I'm not running out of anything yet. But yes, I plan to just curate a wish list and then see at the end of the month what I feel about those items, and I think that will tell me a lot about how I make my purchasing decisions. Like if I happen to be stressed, or if it's just like a hyperfixation at one point, maybe that could be a video that I can make about like the things on my wish list, or maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, I plan to do a no buy in April. So with that, maybe I'll talk a bit about how my budget went for March. Apart from my sinking fund where I kind of overspent, everything else I think is okay. So I think the overspending in the sinking fund is why I'm resolving to do a no buy for April. So I've deleted all the shopping apps from my phone, and I hope to spend a bit more time doing other things like reading, for instance, instead of window shopping. So that is the budget for March. I had quite a bit of extra income in March from things like cashback and bank interest. So recently I switched over to the OCBC account, And I only just recently switched, but then they announced that they were cutting the interest rates, which is fine, and truly any interest that I get is just a bonus. Maybe I'll make a video in the future about the process of changing bank accounts. I did it primarily to consolidate all my savings accounts, because previously I had a lot of my savings in different cash management accounts, and it was getting a bit overwhelming, and I wanted to consolidate it in one place. So that's why I switched to the OCBC, because I knew that the interest rate was also a bit better. But I think that's a video for another time. But anyway, the interest for OCBC is quite a lot, so I count that as part of my extra income. And because it's interest that I would have earned for my various savings pools in their different cash management accounts to begin with, so I think I'll just split them up among my different savings funds. But I also got a lot of credit card cashback. Like for instance, my Trust card, I suddenly got I think almost $70 worth of cashback, and I'm not sure for what reason. I think maybe it was like the end of the quarterly cycle or something, and then I think some of you also applied for a card with my promo code, and so I got quite a lot of cashback from that. But as with these extra income, usually they'll just go to either my investments or my other savings funds. So not that I'm gonna spend this anyway. Then in April also, there's a whole bunch of USave vouchers coming in, so I don't have to budget for service and conservancy charges, electricity and water and gas. So I will redirect the money that I would have budgeted for those things into my savings and investments. And then with my no buy April, I'm going to cut my sinking fund to just $50 instead of $100. And this $50 is also mainly just to make sure that I have money put aside for my existing subscriptions, like my iCloud subscription, and like for any of the emergency things that I might have to get. So that is my budget for the new month. Okay, finally, let's talk about my favorites. I have a few things that I'm really excited to share. First on the list is Moana 2. I watched Moana 2 while I was in Hong Kong, and it was a really fun movie. I watched Moana for the first time last year in November, so it was quite recent, even though it's a much older movie. But it was quite recent that I watched Moana 1, so it was still fresh on my mind when I watched Moana 2, and it's a really good sequel, I think. And the thing is, nowadays I am mostly reading. I don't really watch shows anymore. I used to watch shows all the time. Like when I was in uni, I was reading less and watching more things. But as I've gotten older, I feel like I don't have the attention span to sit through a TV show, like a drama anymore. Even if I watch TV shows, they tend to be serial shows, so like every episode is a new story, that kind of thing. I find it very hard to commit to like a drama where it's a full story from all over 24 episodes. I don't know, I just feel like I cannot commit to 24 episodes. But reading is easier for me, so I'm just reading more than I'm watching things. But at the same time, the kind of shows and films that I can watch now, I love the simple ones. Simple in the sense that they are hopeful and not overly depressing, and a lot of Disney movies tend to be like that. They tend to have a very hopeful message at the end because they are also made for children at the same time that they are made for adults. So something like Moana 2 has been very comforting to watch, and so I highly recommend watching it if you like the first movie. But yeah, Moana 2 has been really soothing, especially while I was stressed out in Hong Kong, because I watched it while I was in Hong Kong. Then the second thing, which has been a huge favourite, is actually Jenny Biscuits from Hong Kong. I think you might have heard of it. It's quite a popular souvenir to bring back when you go to Hong Kong, and it's from this supposed to be small bakery, like Hong Kong based bakery called Jenny Biscuits, or Jenny Bakery, and then they do like butter biscuits. Yeah, it's called Jenny Bakery. So I went to queue up to get some tins for myself and some friends. I first heard of it from my real estate agent. He gave me a box the last time that he visited, and that was the first time I heard of the bakery and the first time I tried the biscuits, and I remember I loved it. It was so delicious and very indulgent, but in like an old-timey nostalgic kind of way, because even like the tin that it comes in is this bear illustration and with all this floral design. So there's something about the packaging that seems very vintage and nostalgic to me. And I'm sure a lot of people like it for that reason as well. So if you're ever in Hong Kong and you're thinking about souvenirs to bring back, I highly recommend Jenny Bakery. This is a tin that I'm planning to give to somebody, but I bought myself one of the bigger tins, the round tins, and I have that in my kitchen, and every morning I just have a couple biscuits and it just makes me a little bit happier. So I'll be very sad once I run out of Jenny biscuits. But for now, I am enjoying having them every morning. Then my next favorite, oh, I forgot to mention when I was also talking about watching TV shows, one of my favorite TV shows to watch is Abbott Elementary. Right now, season 4 is slowly coming out on Disney+, so I've been catching it every week. And it's just really funny. Like, I've loved Abbott Elementary from the first time it came out, and I've just been following it with every new season. It's just really comforting. It's a comforting sitcom. It's about teachers in a Philadelphia public school. And I love shows where the protagonists in the show are just good people trying to do their best. That's my favorite kind of comfort show. So if you're looking for a new sitcom to watch, I highly recommend Abbott Elementary. My final favorite from March is another book. I'm glad that I always have time to include a book in these favorites because it means that I managed to finish reading something, and something good enough for me to say that it's a favorite. But anyway, for this month, my favorite book is actually this graphic novel called Sapiens. You might have heard of the book itself, which is called Sapiens also, by Yuval Noah Harari. I think that's how you say it. And I've heard of that book. It's a very popular book, but I've never gotten around to reading it because it's so thick and I feel like it'll take me a very long time to get through. So this book is actually from my office library. It's not a real library, it's just a shelf of books. And I just randomly picked it off the shelf and started reading it, and I was enthralled from like the first page. It's a graphic novel, so it's very easy to read because it's mostly just dialogue, but also the story itself. If you like natural history, if you're a huge like history nerd or anthropology enthusiast, it's so interesting. It's about the history of humanity from 50,000 years ago, and then they illustrate it and explain the story in such a interesting way. The storytelling devices that they use are just so mind-blowing, and I got through this book pretty quickly. And I remember after I read the first chapter, I couldn't stop thinking about it, but I didn't want to bring it home because it's such a big book. This is still my office copy. I'm holding on to it so that I can film this video, but it's such a bulky book. But I found myself just carrying it home and bringing it to work so that I can read it on the train. Like, I was so taken by it that I just wanted to read it whenever I could. And I ended up finishing it at home. It sort of reminds me of the types of history books that I used to read as a kid, like the kind with a lot of pictures. I used to read that a lot when I was a kid in the bookstore. So because of that, there's something very nostalgic about it as well. And because I love this so much, I immediately went to reserve a copy in the library for the second book. So here's the second book. This is hardcover. So this would be even heavier to carry to work on the train. So I plan to just read this at home and then read my 4,000 Weeks in the train on the way to work, because this is too heavy to bring around. I just collected it from the library yesterday and I started reading it, and it's so interesting and I'm very excited to read this. So far there are 3 volumes out. This is the second one, and I think there's meant to be 4 volumes, so the 4th volume is not out yet. I'm hoping that it'll be out soon because I don't want to have to wait after I finish reading the 3rd volume. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's just that I'm obsessed with this series, and it's been a really good distraction from the everyday worries that I have about life, to think about history and humanity on such a large time scale. So it's been giving me that kind of escapism that I feel like I need at this time of my life when I'm pretty stressed out about my own small concerns, when really like humanity has been through so much and history does repeat itself after all. But yeah, I highly recommend this series if you're looking to read something very eye-opening. Anyway, that is it from me today. This video has been very scattered, but If you've watched until this point, thank you so much for sticking through. I'm not gonna hold out too much hope, but I really hope for a better April, and I hope I'll be easier on myself. And likewise, I hope you will also be kinder to yourself for the month of April. It's already the second quarter of the year. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye!